Using where in adjective clauses. Okay, let's begin with a quick review of adjective clauses. Now, adjective clauses are clauses, so they are made up of a subject and verb. And they start with relative pronouns like who, whom, which, that, and whose. But what do adjective clauses do? Well, they modify, or in other words, describe nouns. Now here are some example sentences with adjective clauses in parentheses. 1. The students who arrived late sat in the back of the room. 2. Michael is the person whom you have spoken to on the phone. 3. No one bought any of the computers that weren't on sale. 4. The garden is full of flowers which only bloom in the spring. And 5. I congratulated the mother whose child won first place in the spelling contest. In blue, you can see the relative pronouns that you've already learned how to use. Who, whom, that, which, and whose. And in red, you can see the nouns that they modify. Students, person, computers, flowers, and mother. Now you already know that who, whom, that, and whose are used to modify people, while which, that, and whose are used to modify things. But what about where? Well, it's used to modify locations or places like cities, parks, rooms, even space, or places on the internet. Now let's talk about different places in California using some of my own photographs. The place where I took this picture is called Joshua Tree National Park. It is a huge, beautiful park in San Bernardino, California. And they have lots of trees that look like this, and they are called Joshua trees. These photos were taken in a forest where you can find red trees called manzanita trees. They are in Santa Barbara, California. There is an aquarium in Monterey where you can see many different types of jellyfish. And in San Diego, there is a museum where you can take a photo with a gigantic dung beetle. They also have lots of cool dinosaurs. The museum where I saw a Pablo Picasso sculpture is called LACMA, the Los Angeles Contemporary Museum of Art. Don't you think the sculpture looks a lot like a rooster? Now let's take a look at the first sentence. The place where I took this picture is called Joshua Tree National Park. Do you see where the adjective clause is? It's right here, where I took this picture. Now, this adjective clause modifies the word place. Where is the pronoun, I is the subject, and took is the verb, which follows the structure where, the pronoun, plus the subject and verb. What about this sentence? These photos were taken in a forest where you can find red trees. Here's the adjective clause, and forest is the location word that it modifies. Now let's look at 3 more sentences. I'd like for you to think about where the adjective clauses are and which words they modify. There is an aquarium in Monterey where you can see many different types of jellyfish. Do you see the adjective clause? Here it is, and it modifies aquarium in Monterey. Next, in San Diego, there is a museum where you can take a picture with a gigantic dung beetle. Here's the adjective clause, and it modifies museum. And last we have, the museum where I saw a Pablo Picasso sculpture is called LACMA. Here's the adjective clause, and it modifies the word museum. I'd like to take a closer look at the last sentence. The museum where I saw a Pablo Picasso sculpture is called LACMA. Now, the adjective clause, where I saw a Pablo Picasso sculpture, can be written in several different ways using several different pronouns. Here, using where, there is no preposition. But let's take a second to think about what this sentence is saying. The adjective clause is saying, I saw a Pablo Picasso sculpture in a museum. And the rest of the sentence is saying, the museum is called LACMA. Do you see a preposition in the first sentence? That's right. In is a preposition. Now let's use in order to express the original sentence in several different ways. The museum in which I saw a Picasso sculpture is called LACMA. The museum which I saw a Picasso sculpture in is called LACMA. The museum that I saw a Picasso sculpture in is called LACMA. The museum I saw a Picasso sculpture in is called LACMA. Notice that this last sentence does not have a pronoun, which is totally fine. And all of these sentences express the same idea as the museum where I saw a Picasso sculpture is called LACMA. Now I'd like to give you another example using this photo. Here, I am at a cafe where I'm learning to play chess for the first time. Notice anything strange? Yeah, the game pieces were really big. The cafe where I learned to play chess had very large game boards. Now let's think about the several different ways that I can express the same idea. I can say the cafe at which I learned to play chess had very large game boards, or the cafe which I learned to play chess at had very large game boards, or the cafe that I learned to play chess at had very large game boards. And finally, the cafe I learned to play chess at had very large game boards. Now, you have a lot of choices here, but I do want to point out that the most common forms would be using where and also not using a pronoun at all. For instance, I can end this lesson by saying, I hope you enjoyed hearing about some of the places where I've been around California. Or, I hope you enjoyed hearing about some of the places I've been to around California. Either way, I hope you enjoyed this lesson, and I hope you feel more comfortable now expressing your thoughts about places using where in adjective clauses.